Hi everyone, welcome to a brand new type of video where we discuss more game design topics that are more holistic and not just specific to Unreal Engine. And in this first video, I want to talk about where do you actually begin when you're starting to make a game? Where do you design? What do you do? So let's talk about the 3 C's. The 3 C's I'm referring to are the controls, the character, and the camera. These are the first 3 tenets of any game design that you should really focus on at the very start of your game. Once you've got these nailed down, then you can start filling in with the mechanics, systems, and other gameplay elements of your game's design. So let's take a look at what it looks like inside of Unreal Engine. So inside Unreal, what does that look like? Well, we've got our character set up. This is a third-person template, by the way, and it's already set up with a lot of stuff for you. But obviously, that's if you want to make their particular type of third-person action game. Now, when you're discussing these 3 core C mechanics, you need to think about what it is in your game's design that will affect these. So let's start off with the camera. The camera can be interpreted in very different ways depending on what kind of game genre you're trying to make. For example, the clear obvious difference is first person or third person. If you're going for third person, there's a whole host of other issues to deal with, such as whereabouts do you place the camera? Is it to the side? Is it directly behind? How far away is it? All these things matter when considering your game. And there's lots of stuff we can talk about with cameras, and we'll probably do a dedicated video on that. So keep an eye on that in the future. But let's talk about some of the key differences that we could have in here. So obviously they give us a third person character. We'll start taking a look at that. And when I'm dealing with a game such as like a third person shooter, I'm going to want this camera not here. Okay, so if you're thinking like a Gears of War type game, a game that's primarily about shooting, I want to bring it in a bit closer and over the shoulder. Why? Well, let's take a look at that in action. So if I go to my camera boom here, I'm going to go to socket offset, and I usually like to find a sweet spot of 50-50, and then bringing in a arm length to about 200. So it's right over the shoulder like that. And using the offsets here allows us to keep that over the shoulder appearance on the character as they traverse the scene. Now maybe I could do a little bit higher, and maybe a little bit closer. So let's take a look at bringing that a bit higher. Let's try 100 and bring it into 150. And essentially what I want to do is get to the point where I'm only seeing the top half of my character. Now that is clearly too high. So let's bring that down a bit. So it's between 50 and 60, the sweet spot. I'm going to bring it down to 60. That's better. And so we've got this nice appearance of our character. Now, why would you use it for a third-person shooter? Well, first of all, you want to have a clear view in front of you. Much like you have in a first-person shooter, want to have a clear view of the location directly in front of the camera, because that's where you're going to be aiming your gun. But you also want to be able to see the character and be close to the character and close to the combat. You're not worried about what's behind you, not worried about what's to the side of you. You're worried about what's in front of you. That's very important. Whereas if I'm doing a more actiony game like a Uncharted, for example, I want to bring that camera a bit further back. So this is what we would probably use for a third-person action game. Now, you may also notice in a lot of these action games that when we're running around, we don't do this. We use strafing instead of movement controls like this. So then it goes on to our controls discussion. So how do we get back into strafing into our character? Well, let's take a look at what's happening with our character's movement. Over here, we've got on the character's movement component, down the bottom or near the bottom, you've got orient rotation to movement in the rotation settings. Now, we don't want this. Okay, if we turn that off, that means the character won't change their rotation based upon which way they're moving. But it gives us a different problem. Because if I go into here and move left and right, we've got a strafing in. Obviously, no animations just yet, but we've got that in there. If I turn the camera, I've still got this same issue, okay? The character is moving correctly to the keys, but their rotation isn't. So what we want to do here is we want to change this to be using use controller desired rotation. So we're going to turn that on. And what that's going to do is it's going to match the rotation of our character to the rotation of our mouse. And now my strafing is correct. My forward movement is correct. Again, controls and character movement, there's tons of stuff to go into, specifically about various different genres of games. So this is perfect for a sort of third-person shooter game, but not necessarily ideal for something that involves a bit of platforming, such as like an Uncharted game. For that, I'd probably want to keep it with the movement ticked so I can line up my jumps a lot better. Over here, we're treating it more like a shooter and over the shoulder. And finally, what comes next is about the character. The character is all about their looks and movement and how they move. So by tackling just a couple of these things, we can design our character, controls, and our camera to fit the game that we're trying to design. And it's very purposeful what we're trying to do here. So make sure you are considering each of these things separately as well as all together when starting a game. I wouldn't start with any systems or any particular mechanics. I would actually just focus on just these three things first. And as I said, define your genre first. Define what you want from the game first. And that will lead you into discussing what you actually want to get out of your controls, camera, and character. Now, each of these three things, we're probably going to do a video about all of these more in-depth videos later on, but do let me know what kind of stuff you want to know more about. Would you like to know more about the genres and how they change these various settings? Let me know what kind of mechanics you want to talk about. Let me know what kind of game design theories you want to talk about as well. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/Ryan Laley, where a donation of just $1 a month gets you access to all the videos early before everyone else, including all the Unreal tutorial videos, the animation videos, and well as these new game design videos. Thanks so much for watching, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you all next time. Bye everyone.